Welcome back to College Football Addiction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the biggest game of the week this weekend, Alabama LSU, probably an elimination game for somebody unless things get really, really crazy. Drew from TiderInsider.com, also there on radio in Tuscaloosa. Let's chat a little bit about this. Drew, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. It's great to be with you again, TJ. And you're right. I think it is a college football playoff elimination game for the loser. This is kind of a loser leave town, and it's interesting because this rivalry defined the Southeastern Conference. We've talked about it quite a bit in Huntsville this week already on Talking Ball and my station ESPN 97.7 The Zone because Nick Saban with his history at LSU, winning a national championship in '03, and then going briefly to Miami for 2 years, then coming to Alabama. There was a ton of juice added to this rivalry, and it basically defined the Southeastern Conference for 17 years. And so far in year one under Kalen DeBoer, it's still going to be very, very important. And I've even said this on my show, and I'll say it on yours. This would be the biggest win of the Kalen DeBoer era. And I know people will look at you, and you were at the Georgia game. I was. I mean, you saw that electric environment. And right now, Alabama has the best win because they beat Georgia. They're the only team to do so. But the reason I say this would be the biggest win for Kalen DeBoer is it's different when you win a road game in the league. And as a head coach right now, he doesn't have an SEC road win. He does have one over Wisconsin, who is a good team under Luke Fickell. They're going to go to a bowl game, but the quarterback injury, I think, kind of defined their season. But for Alabama, this would be a huge win because it would keep them alive in the college football playoff chase, and it would set them up for their final three games where they would get no brownie points for winning said games, but they would be a heavy favorite against Mercer, Oklahoma on the road, and then the Iron Bowl against Auburn. Now, this game would still get some brownie points for beating the top 15 team at LSU, much like they are for beating Georgia. And they were very fortunate so far in that they had a really good weekend last weekend for the simple standpoint that South Carolina, who played them very tough in Tuscaloosa, destroyed Texas A&M at home. And then the biggest thing, though, is Tennessee keeps winning. They're in the top 10. And the Vanderbilt Commodores, this ain't your dad's Vanderbilt or my dad's or your uncles or whatever. This is a Vandy team that's going to a bowl game. And Alabama needs Vanderbilt to continue to win. That's going to be a fascinating game, by the way. I agree with you that you can argue that the two biggest games of the weekend, arguably, are Alabama LSU and then Georgia Ole Miss. But that South Carolina Vandy game is very interesting. That's going to be in Nashville because I mean this could be a Vandy team that could win 8 games, which is pretty astonishing and would I think win Clark Lee Coach of the Year in the conference.
Yeah, South Carolina as well. Like just for everything that's going on there, shoot, they could have another win against LSU. They could have another win against Bama.
That
Really
could be
the only time,
easy.
yeah,
I mean,
like and so it means so much for both of them. I mean, South Carolina could win out. I mean, I know Missouri's kind of had them in a chokehold, but they could beat Vandy, they could beat Missouri. Clemson looks like who knows what, and then obviously they're going to beat Wofford. So for both teams, it's huge. But yeah, you're right, and I. Yeah, thanks for catching me. Huntsville's 97.7 ESPN, not there in Tuscaloosa, but
hey, it's all good, brother, because I'm on in Tuscaloosa.
it's so hard when you're doing a Bama. You're like, oh, Tuscaloosa.
An adopted son, so it's
Yeah.
all good.
Um, but you mentioned it, and yeah, the thing that makes I think this one so big is, pound for pound, yeah, Georgia was number one, blah blah blah, or like top whatever. But to me, college football is so much. What have you done for me lately? And people are pissed off about Vandy, even though Vandy's good this year. Like I get it. People are pissed off about the way they looked against South Carolina. They're not happy with the Tennessee game, like this, that, the other, whatever they're mad about. 1 week to the next, being a fanatic, I get it. I live and breathe it too. But I don't want to say people have forgotten about the Georgia win, but like that Georgia win has been soured, I think, by some bad performances. And I think this is where you can go on the road in not just a hostile environment, the hostile environment in college football against a team that, yeah, LSU's got their problems too. There's no doubt about it. But a team that, man, this would be really impressive. And again, nothing's a given, but you win this one, it's really hard to see Alabama not going to the playoff. And so, again, I just think it's what have you done for me lately? It is I need the win now. And conversely, though, if they're to lose this, I mean, nothing major is going to happen. Like Kalen DeBoer's not going anywhere for going 9-3 in year one. But man, what is the alternative though if they lose this? Like from the fans, like do you expect coach not not at the top, but like coordinator type changes, or what do you expect? Like if they end up finishing 9-3 with a big loss in this weekend's game?
I mean, no matter how they finish, and let me preface this by saying, TJ, I don't think this Alabama team is going to win a national championship. Okay, I just don't think it's very hard to do in year one of a head coach. The Larry Coker thing doesn't really happen, where you take over a team that 01 Miami team might be the most talented in college football history. When you go back and look at all the talent that Butch Davis, by the way, Butch Davis ruined his coaching career by
Yeah,
going to Cleveland. He should have stayed at Miami. He would have been a Hall of Famer on the college level. But again, it's all about timing. And, I just think overall, when you look at it, I think this is a good Alabama team, really good at times when they play well. But I don't see them, being winning a college football playoff this year. I think they had a better football team a year ago. But again, it's very difficult when you have a regiment change and everything is different. I mean, it's nothing is the same. The way they practice, when they practice, what they're doing offensively, defensively, and in special teams. And I talked with someone in Tuscaloosa that I trust implicitly, and he made some very strong comments. He said this recruiting class for Kalen DeBoer is number one right now,
yeah,
and he said it's the most important class in 17 years. And he basically said since the '08 class that Nick Saban was able to sign. It really set the tone with the Mark Barons, the Julio Joneses, the Mark Ingrams that turned the program around completely. He said that they need that kind of talent infusion with this class because while they're talented, they only really have of their upperclassmen. I'm talking about juniors and seniors. One guy right now that might be a first round pick, and that's Tyler Booker, and he's a guard, and so there's no guarantees there. The Jihad Campbells, the Deontay Lawsons, those guys. LT Overton's had a really good run, but none of them are locked first round kind of draft picks or even first round picks. So Alabama, they're used to having 3 to 4 first round guys. Those guys aren't there right now. They have young players like Ryan Williams and people like that
sure.
who are going to be really good players down the road. I think Caden Proctor will be a high draft pick at some point within the next year or so, but not right now. And
Yeah,
so
not this
Alabama,
draft.
yeah, they need some a talent infusion, and the biggest thing is to finish the season strong, get to postseason play. You hope it's in the playoff, but regardless, you'd like to see 9-3 in a good bowl game and finish this recruiting class strong. But certainly, it would be big in the first year to get to the college football playoff. But I'll be honest, to me, I think the results would be gravy. Certainly, if Alabama doesn't win in the playoff, fans will not be happy. But if they can get to the college football playoff, especially after the hiccups against Tennessee and Vandy, it would be huge. And that's what makes this LSU game so big. But I will say, to go back to my point, though, regardless of if he gets to the playoff or not, I do think the staff will have some tweaks to it because I think their eyes have been opened to
Yeah,
how tough the SEC is. No disrespect to the Pac-12, which doesn't even really exist anymore.
back two.
And last year it was good, but as
It's
they've
different.
learned, it's big boy ball and it's totally different. And I think he's learned that. And that's what great coaches do. They adjust, and certainly Nick Saban did after year
Best
one.
at it. Yeah.
I think that there'll definitely be some adjustments, but I think the fan base it would calm a lot of people down if they could win this road game with a lot of people watching them on Saturday night in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and I agree. And not only is it getting the more talented younger guys up, it's getting his guys in too, right? More of his roster and what the guys that he, which with the portal and everything else, that's less of a thing now, I suppose. But it's really getting those young guys that he's brought in developed up and seeing what they look like, and not even just this year, but next year and the year beyond and the year beyond. So on LSU, they've certainly had their struggles, and Nussmeier. They've obviously had to replace a lot. I mean, their guys are balling out in the NFL right now. When you look at Daniels and Naylor and like different wide receivers that are just absolutely crushing it. They've got their own issues, but at times this LSU team can be really good. Like that's the thing, I guess. I mean, maybe that's the thing with anybody this year. When they're really good, they're really good. When you're really not good, you're struggling. And man, they felt like they were I mean, I felt like they were going to win that A&M game until they just had a massive implosion in the second half. And so I think that's what's dangerous. Now, getting to play in Baton Rouge is a big deal for them, as it always is. They don't lose a lot of night games in Baton Rouge. And the couple times they have lost, it has been to this team that they're playing this weekend. But, that maybe that's unfair because of who was coaching and what Alabama was for so long. I think the other time they lost was to somebody just absolutely terrible. I forget who, like just a game that they should never lose. But
Ironically, it might have been UAB when Nick Saban was there.
yeah, it's been like it doesn't happen. And so what about this LSU team kind of catches your eye or kind of gives you the most pause? Alabama struggled with the run at times. LSU doesn't do that super well. They do have a good offensive line when it's playing well. What about LSU kind of gives you pause or gives you concern from the Alabama side?
Certainly, they're explosive. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier is a kind of a gunslinger. He kind of reminds me, his philosophy is kind of like Brett Favre's. I mean, he believes in his arm. He'll take some chances, make some throws in tight windows. He's not super mobile, which I think would be an advantage to Alabama. I remember when they faced him last year, because remember they saw him for a quarter almost, really, when Jaden Daniels took the hit from Dallas Turner, and all the softies out there were talking about Dallas should have been ejected. It was a dirty hit. It was football, man. Because Jaden Daniels, I'll admit, he was the best player in the country last year. Once Brock Bowers got hurt, I mean, there was nobody close to Jaden Daniels. He was unbelievable. I
Yeah.
saw that. I was there at that game in Tuscaloosa. But Nussmeier's a different style, but he's still really good. And a guy that I wish had stayed at Alabama, Nick Saban wishes he had. He's really blossomed this year, Aaron Anderson, and I knew he would. He's from Edna Carr in New Orleans. He and Kyron Lacey are really good receivers. Alabama's going to have to tackle well in space and not give up big plays to those guys. Mason Taylor, as you know, scored the 2-point conversion to beat them 2 years ago. He wanted to come to Alabama because Nick Saban coached his dad with the Dolphins, but Alabama passed on him, and he's a really good player. So they've got a really nice receiving core. And a good pass blocking O line. Now, Caden Durham's their leading rusher. He's a freshman. They've got Josh Williams. It's interesting. They're at the bottom of the SEC in rushing, but Alabama's rush defense is 14th. So it's going to be which one of them performs the best. Can Alabama have a game where they stop the run? They need to, because they need to make LSU one dimensional. If they can do that and put the game on Nussmeier's hands, I think Kane Womack will blitz a little more because Nussmeier's a guy that he likes to climb the pocket, but he's not a runner. So you can get after him. The key is going to be for Alabama, they got to outrush LSU. They need to build off the formula that they had against Missouri, except the only difference is they've got to start fast like they did against Georgia. Georgia's really the only game offensively they've started fast. They got up 28-0. They need to come out, run the ball. They need their backs to run the ball because LSU is in the bottom third of the league in rush defense as well, and really in pass defense. Now they've improved under Blake Baker, no doubt about it. But there's still plays there to be had. I think there's been receivers open all year. Milrow has got to be more efficient. He's got to hit throws early, but he's also got to take off. Now they're going to scheme and try to take away his legs, but the improvisational stuff will be there. And he used a lot of that last year when he rushed for 155 and 4 touchdowns and he threw for 200. He's got to let it roll. He's got to let it rip. And I will say this: they've had 2 weeks to prepare. I thought he was a little better against Missouri, even though he got off to a slow start. But he also has to protect the football. In those 2 losses, he turned it over.
Yeah.
So Alabama's got to protect the ball. They've got to outrush LSU, and then they've got to keep doing what they've been doing on defense. And what they've been doing, they've been getting better in Kane's system. They got to turn LSU over because Nussmeier's thrown 9 interceptions. So LSU has tended to turn the ball over, but that's what they've got to do. And they've got to play out in front and somewhat take that crowd out of the game that's going to be, as usual, off the wall early. I
Yeah.
mean, it's always, I'll just, Nick Saban always called it the bleep show. You got to get through the first few minutes and got
Yeah.
to take them out of the game and systematically win it. And that's what Alabama's going to have to do Saturday. I've got Alabama winning the game, 27-24, 28-24, but it's going to be one of those, I'll quote the late Jerry Reed, who is one of my favorite people on the planet, and the snowman and Smokey the Bandit. Hold on to your ass, Fred. That's what you have to get off to a fast start, and then you're
Yeah.
going to have to close the game out. Probably defensively, you're going to have to get a key turnover, a stop to win it.
Yeah, which you said LSU has been prone to do. Thinking about the crowd being early in games. I was there in 2016, and Alabama was number one, if I believe. LSU was like top 15 ish. I don't know, somewhere in there. And I was in the end zone that Alabama started on, and Hurts from his end zone threw that pick early. And I have never heard a crowd like I've been to a lot of stuff. I've never heard you intercept Jalen Hurts, the number one team in the country, on the first drive like that. I thought the place was going to come down on top of us. Like that's how loud it was. And so, yeah, I mean, LSU's offense was just, I mean, Bama's defense was insane, and LSU's offense was pretty inept. And they couldn't do anything. I mean,
Yeah,
Fournette ran for
nothing
less than
game. Jalen finally scored in the fourth quarter on a
yeah,
run.
it was
Yeah,
3-0 for the whole game. And then just kind of an improv play, busted play. He ran for like, I don't know, 25, 30-yard run. And you're like, oh, well, the game's over. But yeah, 3-0 the whole game. You're like, man, this game sucked. But the crowd was in it the whole time because it was close. And in that start, you're right about the start. That's imperative. Who's your, I'll ask you this and we'll get out of here, but you have an X factor tonight. I mean, Milrose is an easy one to say, and Ryan Williams is an easy one to say too. So I'm going to take them away because that's cheating to say them. But who's your X factor maybe in this game besides those two?
well, offensively, it's the combination of Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I think they need to combine for about 150 yards. They need to provide balance and take some of the load off of Milrow, both running and passing. I mean, it'll make his job so much easier if you're getting production out of the tailback position. Make it easier for him to throw the football, also to improv with his legs, and then the X factor defensively to me is the pass rush. I think LT Overton, even a guy like Jordan Renaud, who's played more and more, and then Q Robinson, who's tended to make plays from that wolf spot in every game. Quay Russaw should be as healthy as he's been in a while. He's been starting at that wolf spot. I think Alabama's pass rush, they've got to get after Nussmeier. They've got to move him off his spot, make him uncomfortable, force him into a 2 to 3 interception game like we've seen out of Carson Beck in most of these big games. If Alabama, I know they didn't win the plus minus against Tennessee, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't. This LSU defense has improved, but it's not Tennessee's. I know Tennessee doesn't have a great pass rush, but they haven't given up over 20 points to anybody. They've got one of the top 3 defenses in the SEC. This LSU team is not that. So to me, Alabama has got to be balanced offensively. Milrow's got to protect it, but they've got to run the football with that combination at running back, and then defensively, they've got to get after Nussmeier because I think if they can hit him, if they can sack him 2 or 3 times, that's going to lead to some bad decisions, some hurried decisions, and I think that'll lead to Alabama getting the turnovers they need and perhaps a short field where they can take advantage and turn that into points.
Drew, I appreciate you for hanging out, man. Where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
Absolutely. They can follow me at Drew D977 ESPN. Of course, we bring Scott Tyson and I bring you talking ball Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. And 8 to 10 a.m. On the East Coast where you are and in the Tampa area. But they can certainly follow us there. They can follow us at 977ESPN.com, or if they missed our show and want the content there, or at our SoundCloud page, ESPN 97.7 The Zone, and certainly they can follow our station at 977 ESPN. But we always enjoy being on with you. We appreciate it. And we need to get you on soon to talk Florida State because, I mean, right now there's not a lot of headlines as far as the games week to week, but there's going to be in the offseason because this is going to be a huge one for Mike Norvell and having to reset that program.
Yeah, there will be a lot of change. I'm hearing about some of it already. That's coming. So yeah, anytime, man. But I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.